The very first thing that springs to mind is I want to talk about the phrase, not my kid. So many parents want to believe that their kid is safe. Nothing will ever happen to their kid. Their kid won't experience any sexual abuse. It doesn't happen in their neighborhood. It wouldn't happen among their friends. Their kids' friends wouldn't watch pornography. Their kids' friends, the area where they have their kids, that's not where kids being sexually assaulted as teenagers or all of that kind of thing. And we really have to work hard to dispel that. We all have kids who are at risk these days. All of our kids are at risk from online abuse. All of our kids are at risk of exposure to pornography and everything that goes along with that. And we all have a responsibility to step up and really take action to help our kids stay safe and have the childhood that they deserve to have.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Motherhood Made Magic podcast. So today I am interviewing Caroline Ellen. She is a social worker and parenting coach who believes all children deserve a childhood free to play and discover. Caroline is founder of Safer Stronger Kids and on a mission to improve children's physical and emotional safety through stronger parent-child relationships. Caroline's style is raw, real and relatable. As a mum of two girls aged 4 and 2, she's in the trenches alongside us. She combines personal and professional experience to help connect parents back to themselves and their children. Such important work you do, and I'm so pleased that you're able to come on and share it with us today, Caroline. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna. I feel very excited and honoured to be here chatting to you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. So we're going to cut straight to the chase here.
Go for it. What
do you think parents need to know?
Oh, there's so many things, Anna. You're asking me to choose just one. The very first thing that springs to mind is I want to talk about the phrase, not my kid. So many parents want to believe that their kid is safe. Nothing will ever happen to their kid. Their kid won't experience any sexual abuse. It doesn't happen in their neighborhood. It wouldn't happen among their friends. Their kids' friends wouldn't watch pornography. Their kids' friends, the area where they have their kids, that's not where kids being sexually assaulted as teenagers or all of that kind of thing. And we really have to work hard to dispel that. We all have kids who are at risk these days. All of our kids are at risk from online abuse. All of our kids are at risk of exposure to pornography and everything that goes along with that. And we all have a responsibility to step up and really take action to help our kids stay safe and have the childhood that they deserve to have. So much of the work, actually all of the work that I do is about creating safer spaces for kids. So sometimes you notice on my Facebook page, for instance, sometimes I post about how to respond to tantrums or how to help kids express their feelings. And then I'll talk about online safety, and then I talk about body safety. And it's such a broad range of things, but it comes back to one theme, which is a stronger parent-child relationships and creating safer spaces for kids. I want to give people the tools to have stronger relationships with their child and to give their kids the skills and information and knowledge and resources they need in order to be safe. And I also want to help parents have the tools they need to help their kids stay safe as well.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. And that double-pronged approach is so important because it's not just about the environment. It's about the whole thing.
Absolutely.
From the parent experience and from the child experience.
Yes. The key word that I keep coming back to lately in conversations with people is the word and. I've seen so much polarizing debate lately about it's school's responsibility to teach our kids about consent. Oh, no, it's parental responsibility to talk about consent, or it's a government responsibility to keep our kids safe online. No, it's a parental responsibility to keep kids safe online. The word we've got to come back to is and.
It's everyone's responsibility, isn't it?
Personal responsibility. Yeah, it's everyone's. It's and. It's parents and schools and governments. And it's about conversations, and it's about content filters, and it's about parents' knowledge, and it's about kids' knowledge, and we have so much work to do to restore childhood to what it can be.
And I think I'm really interested that you started with that phrase, not my kid, because I've just been reading a bit recently about the flip side of that is that it's not only not my kid who might be a victim, but not my kid who might be a perpetrator. That we all believe our children have hearts of gold because they do, but that still doesn't mean their behavior is going to be golden unless we help them to understand what consent and safety is. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about consent from the start in terms of, you know, yes, it starts right in infancy and in young childhood, and how that flows through the time that we are primarily responsible for our children.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that a lot of the conversations we're seeing in media right now, which are really important, really good conversations that we need to have, but they focus on teaching consent. So a lot of the conversation is about how do we sit kids down and teach them consent. And that's important. It is important that we do that. But we've got to also remember that kids are experiential learners. So, as we all are, really. So we can't just teach them consent. We have to have them experience consent. If we really want to wire into their brains consent, then they have to live it. They have to experience it in relation to their bodies and their life. And they have to have the chance to experience it in how that applies to them in relation to others as well. So that means, for instance, that we can't just teach consent in the classroom. We need to do that. And we need to, in our homes, have family cultures that prioritise consent and body safety as something that we learn and live and experience every single day. So that means, for instance, that when our kids are fighting, so we've got siblings and they're fighting, or maybe they're playing like a rough and tumble game, you know, or a tickle game or something like that, and it's going a bit far, and we could step in and just yell at them to quit making so much noise and get off each other. I don't have to tell you one more time. Or we could turn that into a moment where we experience consent and we say, if you've had enough, then you say stop, and if they say stop, you over there, you need to listen. So we can tie consent, we can make it into a lived experience. So something that our kids experience, that they get the chance to say no and stop, and also that they can expect that no and stop to be respected, and that when they're on the receiving end of that, that they can, that they need to check for consent too, that they need to be listening and watching for the other person's cues. They need to be willing to ask. They need to be willing to stop and say, is this okay? Do you want me to keep going? Like that they have a responsibility to check for consent throughout the course of the play, and that they just need to live that. We've got to see that our home life is actually the foundation of where kids can live, experience consent, and that is what gives them the strongest possible foundation, as well as learning about it in a classroom context.
Yeah, such a powerful example. And it actually makes me think of, I took my daughter to a baby massage class and she was only like 6 or 7 weeks old. And, you know, she spoke about why baby massage was so great. And then she said, all right, and now we're going to learn some things and, you know, touch our babies, but only if they want to be touched. We have to ask for their consent first. And it's like, this child, like, you know, she can't roll yet. We're still learning. I'm still learning what her sounds mean. And I meant to ask her, like, for her consent to give her a massage. Like, this is cracked.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, she will tell me by her body language if she's not up for a massage.
Yes, and it's up to you to learn the cues. It's up to you to watch for those cues and to watch how she can communicate, because we can all communicate. It's up to the other person to work out what we're communicating, and yeah, that's exactly right. And so for your baby, what could she do that showed you she didn't want a massage? What did you see?
She would go quite rigid and tense through her body, you know, the same sort of stuff as, you know, she hated getting her clothes changed when she was tiny, and she would let me know about that with her body language. But as a responsible parent, I did occasionally still have to change her clothes. You know, she can't stay spoiled clothes. So how do we balance up this, like, assisting our children to know about their bodily autonomy, but also
get things
doing the
done.
caring that we have to do.
Absolutely. This is the number one question people ask, really, in relation to raising kids with bodily autonomy. And we want our kids to know about consent and being the boss of their body. But then as parents, we have responsibilities and we need to get things done. So we need to get them in the shower, or we need to get their nappy changed, or we need to get them to clean their teeth. And it can, if we don't have the tools, those things can become really contradictory. So that's where people will fall back into saying, well, no, you have to clean your teeth because I'm the boss. Or they'll force their child to clean their teeth, and then that child isn't experiencing consent, or they might force their child into the bath or force the nappy change. And again, the child is then not experiencing being the boss of their body. They're not experiencing consent, but the parent just doesn't know how else to make this happen. So there's a few really simple tools that can really help us through those moments. And the first one is remembering empathy and an explanation. So when your child really doesn't want to do something, maybe they don't want to get in their car seat, and you are late and you are at the point where you're like, I've got to just set the limit. I've got to get you in the car. I can't sit here waiting for you to say yes. Then simply saying, I understand that you really don't want to get in the car. I know that you don't feel like going anywhere right now, but we need to get in the car because we need to go XYZ. We've got to get your sister to school on time. And so I'm going to pick you up and I need to put you in the car today. And then they might feel upset about that and they might not want us to pick us up. But if we meet that with empathy, I understand that you don't want me to pick you up. And next time I'll let you have more time to get in the car. That goes a long way. We're still getting through the moment as best we can, but we are explaining our actions and we're having empathy for their experience of it. It's not going to feel amazing. We would rather that we got to the point of them being able just to get themselves into their car, perhaps by playing a game or all of that kind of thing. But there are moments when I know we just run out of time or we just run out of creativity. If in those moments you rely on lean into that empathy and explanation, that makes a difference. It's a really different experience for your child in that moment than if you just pick them up and say, I'm putting you in the car because I am the boss and you have to get in because I said so. So that's a complete override of their autonomy and their consent. At least if you're picking them up, but you're meeting it with that empathy and explanation, it makes a difference. But also when we're talking about kids and caring for their bodies, so a really common one is, you've taught them that they're the boss of their body, for instance, and then they say, well, I'm not going to clean my teeth because I'm the boss of my body and I don't have to clean my teeth. So parents are like, oh, what do I do now? So what we want to remember there is that our kids are the boss of their body, but our job as parents is to help them learn how to look after their body. So being the boss of your body, having rights over your body, bodily autonomy, is a right. It's also a responsibility. So they have a right to their body. They have a responsibility to learn to look after their body. And our job as parents is to help them learn how to do that. So cleaning your teeth is part of learning how to look after your body. Getting to bed on time, getting plenty of sleep is about learning to look after your body. Getting in the shower is learning to look after your body. Now, kids actually respond really well to this because they want to learn to look after their bodies. They're naturally motivated to learn how to look after their bodies. It helps them feel like they're responsible for their bodies, and that's an empowering feeling. Instead of just feeling like I have to do this because I mum or dad or whoever it is said so, I understand the reason that I need to do this. It's a lens shift, but it's a really simple shift in our language. If we simply say, you are the boss of your body, but my job is to help you learn. Being the boss of your body means you're responsible for learning to look after it as well, and I'm here to teach you how to do that.
So you get a lot of speaking to my heart or to my experience. Exactly. I feel like I'm getting a coaching session with what you're telling me here, because the teeth brushing, the car seat, these are some things that have been happening, but it sounds like I've been on the right track. So that's good.
We all need to offer ourselves compassion when we run into these moments where we're like, I want my child to be the boss of their body. I want them to live this experience of consent. I want to have a family culture of body safety, and to, have them live this so they really understand it when they grow up. And when we do this, they'll understand it when they grow up from both sides. They understand that they have the rights over their own body, but they also understand that other people have rights over their own body too. So they get to say no when they need to, but also they need to listen and respect someone else's no, for instance. But we as parents get to offer ourselves some compassion around this stuff. It's hard and it's tricky, and we won't naturally have the skills in how to answer and how to manage these moments, because it's really unlikely that this is how we were parented. We haven't heard other people do it necessarily. It wasn't done for us. We've got no role modeling around it. So it's allowed to be hard. It's allowed to be clunky. You're allowed to go and have to seek out support on how to manage this, because it is just so new. And I think a lot of parents can guilt themselves if they have struggled or had these moments where they've said, well, you've got to do it because I said so, or because I'm the boss, or all of that. But there's a reason that you did that, and that's because that's what you've seen done. And you didn't necessarily know there was an alternative.
How can we move beyond that point, Carolyn, if we're feeling guilt, potentially from a single outburst, but also if we're coming to this kind of knowledge perhaps for the first time, or coming around to this approach when our children are a bit older? We've been talking, you and I both have children who are in their infancy, essentially. How do we approach this kind of thing when we're speaking with 9, 10, 14-year-olds?
So I think the most important thing is to know that you can talk to your kids about it too. So you don't have to be superhuman. You don't have to pretend that you know everything as a parent and that everything you've ever done was the right choice. That you're allowed to say, they will not lose respect for you if you say to them, you know what, when I look back on some of my parenting, I kind of wish I'd done things differently. I look back and I realize that I made you do stuff like clean your teeth, or I forced you to get in the car, or I forced you to do XYZ with your body. And I just thought that's what I had to do, but I didn't realize that I was making me the boss of your body instead of making you the boss of your body. And actually, if I could turn back time, I'd do that differently. So I want you to know, even though I haven't parented you like that, I'm going to turn that around from now on. Like, we're going to do things differently. But also, it's really important for you to know you really are the boss of your body. You have rights over your own body. You get to say no. You get to decide what you do with your body. Nobody else is allowed to guilt or coerce you into doing things with your body that you don't want to do. You don't owe anyone physical affection with your body. You don't have to give someone sexual favors just because they brought you dinner. You get to stand up and say no, and you don't have to be polite. You can just say it. Just say to them, bring all of this stuff out into the light and talk about it with them. So often as parents, we think that we've got to pretend to be perfect in the eyes of our kids, or we can't go back and tell them that we think that we've made a mistake or correct course, or we think that they'll lose respect for us if we do that. But the opposite is true. If we have these kinds of conversations with our kids, their respect for us grows. They see us as human. They see us as learning. And also that means it gives them permission to make mistakes and to grow and learn across their lifespan, and to realize that we all grow and evolve across our lifespan, and we learn new things and we make changes in our life as a result of learning new things. So it's not just okay that we have those conversations. It's actually a beautiful moment to have those conversations with our kids.
That provides me with so much hope, I suppose, that all is not lost.
No, all is not lost, but we've just got to get better at being willing to communicate with our kids, opening up and just talking to them about life, being willing to talk to them, especially if we're talking about teenagers or even tweens and teenagers. They need to hear from us. They need to hear us talk about what sex and relationships are meant to be like, and what porn is and what it isn't. And as parents, we shy away from these conversations because we think, or we want to believe, oh, my kid doesn't want to hear about that from me, or that's way too awkward, or
too young for that. They're too
young for that. Whenever we say it's too much for them, I can't talk about that with them, it's actually code for we're feeling it's too much for us, because our kids want to hear from us and they want to learn about their bodies, and they want to learn desperately. They want to learn about life and how it works and where they fit into all of this. So they want to have these conversations with us, and it will only ever be as awkward as what we make it as the parent.
One thing I've got from the last little bit that you've been speaking about is that for the child to be able to own their own no, we have to own ours too.
Yes, absolutely.
And that might be telling them why we need to leave the park, for example, not because of tricking them into something, but just because of saying, because I'm really cold and I want to go home now.
Yes, absolutely right. And I think boundaries, when we are confident in our boundaries with our kids, when we can say no, you know, maybe it is about staying longer at the park, for instance, we'll use that as an example. And we can say, no, we can't stay any longer at the park. We need to go home because I need to get dinner cooked, or because I'm cold. And then they get upset with us. If we can stay steady and we don't get upset about their upset, and we can just hold space for that emotion and say, you're allowed to be mad with me, but we need to be heading home now because I've got to cook dinner, or whatever it might be. There's actually really important learning in that for kids. It helps them to feel safe, but also it's a role modeling positive boundaries for them down the track. They learn that they can say no in a relationship, and then still with kindness and empathy hold the line of their no, and that they're allowed to do that. It's actually really empowering for kids to see boundaries well done by a parent, because as they get older, it will allow them and it will give them the skills to do boundaries well in their own relationships, in their friendships, and then down the track, perhaps even with their own kids as well. So often we get scared of, we think boundaries are a bad thing, that we're being mean or whatever it is. But so long as we are, again, delivering them with empathy and staying at a place of empathy and love, and saying you're allowed to be mad with me, you know, so we set limits, for instance, we set limits on behaviors instead of feelings and all of those things, then our kids are going to have a positive experience of boundaries, and those boundaries are actually really important for them to experience.
You're so right. One boundary that I would love you to discuss in a bit more detail is around devices, phones, internet connected things. I met a child who was in year 5 the other day, and they gave me a pretty incredible insight into what it's like to be an internet connected child with internet connected friends. Pretty heavy disclosures. Yeah, I was very pleased that the disclosures were not being made to me for the first time, but the mother was also aware. But it really opened my eyes to the fact that it's not that many years until that's going to be some parenting calls that face me as well. Other than ourselves implementing some boundaries around when we do and don't use and have our phones, how can we manage the conversation around boundaries and phones? Say I have a 9 or 10-year-old that wants a device because all their friends have one. What do I do?
That's a really big question. I think that it is really challenging for parents to have to say no when the friends genuinely do all have phones. But the first thing is I would be checking the actual veracity of that. So I think the first thing I would do when you're talking about a 9 or a 10-year-old, what happens a lot is that kids will say, everyone else has a phone. Everyone has a phone and I'm the only one without it. You know, you're ruining my life because you won't let me have a phone. And they're feeling that. Like, to them, it's truth. That's truly how it feels. But then if you as the adult get in touch with other parents and actually find out how many of the kids actually have phones. So pick up the phone and call the other parents and say, do your kids have phones, and what is your plan with this? What's your plan for managing this? You might find out that actually only one of their friends has a phone. And then one of the other kids has said, oh yeah, my parents are giving me a phone for my birthday. but actually maybe that's more hope than truth. And it turns out actually, no, they don't. So it may simply not actually yet be the truth that they do all have a phone, and that's just what your child is feeling rather than the actual situation. So my point there really is to pick up the phone and communicate with other parents. What we have right now is not a community, especially when you get to that 9 to 10-year-old age group and parents aren't talking to each other at pickups and drop-offs, then they're not talking to each other. They're not actually understanding what other parents are doing, and they're also not wanting to feel like, they're not wanting other parents to feel judged by them, so they won't ask questions like this. We're not judging, we're just asking, and we're all working together. Because what we really need to start doing is to start a pushback of all start talking with each other and going, this isn't working. Like, actually, can we all work together to push back the age of when the phones start? You know, can we make it 14? Can we make it 13? It doesn't have to be right now. We can only do that if we're all communicating with each other. But then, to come back to the individual child, again, it comes back to empathy and an explanation. So saying no and being confident in your boundary. So it's saying, I understand that it feels like all of your friends are having phones and it feels like you're the one that's left out. The reason I've made that decision is because once you have a phone, it's really, really hard for me to keep you safe on that phone. So we've made the decision that you will get one, but you'll get one when you're 14. And I understand that that might be really hard for you, but that is our decision. So it's empathy and explanation. Saying no, being confident in your no. You might not feel confident, but being able to sit with it and hold it is going to make a really, really big difference for your child. So try not to take it personally or get irritated with them for repeatedly asking. They're going to ask you, they're going to nag, they're going to be upset by the fact that you said no. They're allowed to be mad with you. It doesn't mean they're disrespecting you when they get mad with you. It just means they're mad about the boundary. They're allowed to be mad about the boundary. And we just have to hold that line. But again, let's just keep talking with other parents and all work together to push back the age at which we're giving them phones. The other thing I want to invite parents to consider is their own motivations behind the giving of the phone. So a lot of parents will say, oh, I'm giving them a phone so that they can be safe, you know, so that they can call me and text me when they need to. If your motivation for giving your child a phone is to do with keeping them safe, then give them an old Nokia that doesn't have internet access. Because the truth is that our smartphones are making our kids less safe, not more safe. So yes, they can contact you, but they can also contact the entire world. And that is not making them more safe. If you are thinking, I'm giving them a phone because I want them to be connected to their friends, I want you to remember that your child needs to be connected to their friends, but they don't need to be connected to their friends all the time. Kids actually need a sanctuary at home, a place where they can retreat back to, a place where they just have their family so that they can recover from the dramas and the stressors that occur in the school playground. So when they're connected to their friends 24/7, they don't get a reprieve from those expectations. And that's actually, they'll tell you that's what they want, but actually in terms of their brain, that's really a stressful experience for their brain to never have that sanctuary time, their time where that all winds back and stops. So they don't need to be connected to their friends as much as they might say that they do.
Such good information, Caroline.
We're just not thinking about it enough, and we're not communicating with each other about it enough either.
I feel like that's all of motherhood, isn't it? We need to break down a whole lot of barriers just to be openly communicating and reestablish things to how we feel that things should be more beautiful than this. That feeling is there for a reason. It's because it should be, and no one's going to make it that way except us. I'm just about ready to wrap this up. I just want you to give me a 1-minute mental download on porn.
I wasn't expecting you to say that for some reason.
Just to put you on the spot there. Because I know this is something that you do talk about.
talk about porn every single day of my life. I didn't expect my career to reach a point where I talk about porn in public every single day, but it is definitely at that point. And it's at that point because this is such a pervasive problem for our kids. We know that our kids are being exposed to porn between the ages of 8 to 10 years old. And this is not something that we can laugh about. We can't chuckle and think, oh, well, it's one way to learn about sex. We can't dismiss or minimize the impact that porn is having on our kids. It can be deeply traumatic for young children to witness porn. They don't understand what they've seen. As a result of them not understanding what they've seen, they'll sometimes go looking for more of it in order to understand. In Melbourne, we have kids as young as 6 and 7 being treated for pornography addictions. This has catastrophic consequences. It increases the rate of child-on-child sexual abuse in our schools, even in primary school. It's increasing the rate, as we know, of sexual assaults among our teenagers. This is not okay. We as the adults are responsible for turning this around. We are responsible for implementing age verification and making sure that our government is responsible for implementing age verification so that an unsupervised 6-year-old can't just wander onto a porn site and then stay there because they're trying to process their own trauma. They're trying to understand what it is that they've seen. We are responsible for taking back control of this narrative. You know, I saw a quote the other day that says we can't stop a 13-year-old boy from watching porn. We actually can. The technology doesn't control us. We control the technology. We can put barriers in place to prevent this from happening. You can't stop a 13-year-old from wanting to view porn. You can stop their access to pornography. And that is the place where we are at. I am convinced that in 20 years' time, we will be apologising to this generation of kids for the harm that was caused online through exposure to inappropriate content, including pornography. And it's a situation that we all need to face up to. We need to take responsibility for it in our homes, through conversations, as well as through content filtering and through supervision. And we need to take responsibility for this in terms of regulation of content online. We can't just tolerate YouTube and TikTok and Snapchat delivering porn to our kids without holding them accountable to that. So there are huge changes that we need to make that make us deeply uncomfortable. We all want to believe, not my kid. My kid wouldn't watch it. My kid would look away. My kid wouldn't stumble across it. My kid would tell me. It's not the truth. All kids, this is a situation that doesn't discriminate. This is affecting all children, and all of our kids deserve better. Also, and I know I've been more than 1 minute, Anna, I apologise, but so many people will turn around and say, well, this is a parental responsibility. Parents need to talk to their kids. Parents need to educate their kids. And that is true. But I want to ask everyone to remember that not all kids have parents who will take action to protect them, but all kids deserve protection. So we have to, as a society, as a community, all of that, we have to work together to take back this situation and to correct the course that we're on, because it is just not okay.
So powerful. Thank you for that. And I think that reminder at the end that not every child will have a parent who will step up to protect them in that sense is a reminder that any conversation that we have with a child is a potential teaching and learning opportunity. If you have another child come and visit your home, if you are their soccer coach, if you are on canteen duty that day, if they come past you and say something while they're leaving the school gate, like, we are all responsible for the well-being of our children, and we're scared of stepping on someone else's toes and being judged ourselves, but our kids need us too.
Absolutely. And we underestimate the impact that we can have for another child on their life in just one moment. You know, it might be one thing that we say and it makes the world of difference to them. It might be, you know, a good friend of our son's and he's at our house a lot, and actually we turn into a mother figure for him. We can't underestimate how important that is. Yeah, how much influence we can have even when it's not our own children.
All right. Thank you for sharing with us all of your insights and just to reinforce your mantra of we all have a right to feel safe all the time. It applies across so many areas of our lives. So I know you do provide support for parents and families. Where is it that we can find you?
So you can find me you can find out more about what I do at my website, which is saferstrongerkids.com. And then I spend most of my time on Facebook. So it's at Safer Stronger Kids on Facebook, and on Instagram is at Safer Stronger.
Lovely. And you also have the Safer Stronger Kids podcast as well, don't you?
I do indeed. Yes, I have my podcast, which is called Safer Stronger Kids, the podcast. And I explore all of this stuff and more. So many different things in relation to parenting and keeping our kids safe, creating safer spaces for our kids.
And there's no one that I know online besides you who I would read every single post and want to share every single post. So I really resonate strongly with your message there. Thank you for being with us today, Caroline.
Thanks so much, Anna. Talk soon.
I hope you loved listening to this episode as much as I loved recording it. If you want to find out more about what I do, you can head to my website, www.annacusack.com.au. Find my book, Mama, You're Not Broken, Unmasking the Unspoken Emotions of Modern Motherhood on Amazon. Find me on Facebook at Anna Cusack, Complete Mama Support, or follow me on Instagram at annacusack postpartum. Please remember to hit subscribe on this podcast and give it a 5-star rating if you feel called. See you next time.